Look, dude, look at my legs. I went from Lieutenant Dan to Lieutenant Stan. I'm up and walking now. Come on. We're back in the studio in front of the window of opportunity this week. This is your chance to get some word in this week to prepare for the Monday that's coming where the enemy's going to meet you. So, without further ado, we're in John chapter 5 this week. It's about the man that got healed at the pool of Bethesda. And I got this inspiration because I saw a video of Theo Vaughn floating around where he just was crying out, and he's talking about how he just wants a new life. And he brought up an excellent point that I hadn't thought of. So you need to stick around and watch this video to hear this point that he brought to me and understand what the Spirit told me about it. So, backstory on this: the pool of Bethesda was called the House of Mercy. That's what Bethesda literally means, is House of Mercy. People would gather around this pool, and legend had it an angel would come down out of heaven and stir the water up really good. And when it happened, the people would race to the pool. It was a bunch of people that were sick or paralyzed or lepers or stuff like that. But they would race to the pool. The first one to get into the water was going to be the one that was healed. That was a legend. Now, the Bible never tells us that this is true. This is before Jesus goes really big time into preaching. So we come into this story. Jesus notices this man sitting at this pool, and Jesus knows he's been there for a long time. He's been sick for 38 years, and this is where we pick up in the scripture here. John chapter 5, verse 6, in the King James Version. When Jesus saw him lie, and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, Wilt thou be made whole? The impotent man answered him, Sir, I have no man, when the water is troubled, to put me into the pool. But while I am coming, another steppeth down before me. Jesus saith unto him, Rise, take up thy bed and walk. And immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed and walked. And on the same day was the Sabbath. Verse 10, the Jews therefore said unto him that was cured, It is the Sabbath day, it is not lawful for thee to carry thy bed. He answered them, He that made me whole, the same said unto me, Take up thy bed and walk. Then asked they him, What man is that which said unto thee, Take up thy bed and walk? And he that was healed wist not who it was, for Jesus had conveyed himself away, a multitude being in that place. Afterward Jesus findeth him in the temple, and said unto him, Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. Okay, I want to point something out here really crucial in verse 6. It says, Jesus saw him lie, and knew that he had been now a long time in that case. He saith unto him, Wilt thou be made whole? That translates to, do you want to be healed? And this is the point that Theo Vaughn brought up to me, and it kind of like exploded in my brain. Okay, Jesus asked him, do you want to be healed? I think that's super important, because if we get to a point in our life where we're ready to come to Jesus, we're ready to make this next step, I think we need to refer to this passage here where Jesus says, do you want to be healed? Jesus is asking us when we come to him, do you want to be healed? Or is your heart posture right? Now hang on to that. We're going to get back to that in a minute. Jesus asked him, do you want to be healed? And the man answered him and said, he said, dude, I don't have anybody to help me get to the pool. Every time it's stirred up, I don't have anybody to get me there. And when I'm almost there, somebody steps down before me and I don't make it. Jesus doesn't even acknowledge that. He doesn't even acknowledge it. He doesn't say, yeah, man, I know you're right. That's terrible. Well, I'll pray for you. No, you know what he says? He says, rise, get up and walk. He's talking about right now. And because you know how I know that? Because verse 9 says it, and immediately the man was made whole. Immediately he was healed. This wasn't a 5 years down the road. This was a right now. And then verse 9 also tells us that on that same day was the Sabbath. Now, here's where the point where I'm going to get to on the do you want to be healed? Okay, when we come to Jesus, it is very important that your heart posture is right. Okay, I heard my preacher bring this analogy up not too long ago. He said that as parents, we know the different cries of our children. As a parent, I've got 2 little boys, and I know the difference in their cries. Okay, sometimes they cry because Big Brother is in the corner giving him a knuckle rub on his head. Sometimes Big Brother's crying because Little Brother took his toy away. Sometimes both of them are crying because Mommy or Daddy is on the phone and they just really want to interrupt in that moment. And then there's a different cry. There's that cry where you know immediately in your head, hey, something's wrong. They're hurt or they're scared, something's wrong. I believe that we have different cries as humans. A lot of us get stuck in that cry where we don't really, it doesn't really mean anything. We're just crying to be heard. We're just crying to stand out. We're crying to put a costume on and act like that we're ready. And that's where this question comes in. Do you want to be healed? And Jesus calls him to reflect there. And when we come to Jesus, we should always reflect. Do we really want to be healed? Do we really want to give up that porn? Do we really want to give up that alcohol that we run to every single night? Do we really want to give up that greediness, that chase for money and success? Do we really want to give up those times in traffic when somebody cuts in front of us and we've got to roll our window down and just holler at somebody? Do we really want to give that up? That's what he's doing here. He's causing him to reflect. Okay, and then when he does this, the man says, "Hey, man, I can't do it. I can't get to the water. I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. Nobody will help me." Um, he's telling Jesus, "Look, I don't have the means to do it." And that's where Jesus steps in. When you stand in your life and you're like, okay, I don't have the means to do it, Father. I don't have the means to do it. I can't do this. I can't get rid of this on my own. I need you, Jesus. And that's where he steps in. And he doesn't even flinch when you do that. You know what he says? You have been healed. Get up and walk. Okay? We're not crawling anymore. We're not dragging along the ground. We are getting up and we are walking in the light. Verse 10 tells us exactly what happens when we decide to get up and respond to Jesus with a pure heart and walk in the light. We see the Jews therefore said unto him, verse 10, that was cured, it's the Sabbath day. It's not even lawful for you to carry your bed today. And he answered him, he said, the guy that made me whole is the one that told me to take up your bed and walk. He's saying this guy just healed me, and he told me to get up and walk. I don't really care about what you got to say right now. Like, look, dude, look at my legs. I went from Lieutenant Dan to Lieutenant Stan. I'm up and walking now. Come on. So what happens is when you respond to Jesus, immediately what's going to happen when you walk out of that room where the Spirit is indwelled, and you just feel this feeling of just peacefulness and comfort from the Spirit. Immediately what's going to happen is you're going to be attacked. We see this in Jesus' story. Immediately when he gets after he's baptized, he's in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights and he's tempted. So just know that that's coming. Know that that's coming. That when you respond purely, that the enemy's coming and he's going to meet you on that day that you decide to give up, to give it all up and give it to Jesus. He's coming. But you got to take up your bed and you've got to walk every single day and walk in the light. And another part about this is it says the Jews. Well, the Jews were the people that practiced the law. They were the people who believed that just living this great life, being legalistic, living this law, living out the commands is going to get them to heaven. And a lot of people live in that today. A lot of people live in it. Oh, it's about what I do that gets me to heaven. That's so not true. And it seems to be those are the people, the legalistic people that attack the new believers. It's like, hey, you're not doing this right. You just gave your life to God, but you're not acting right, okay? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I'll speak from my own experience. When I committed to God, when I gave it all up, finally, my flesh was screaming. It's never been told no. You've been given into your flesh your whole life, however long that is. You've been given into your flesh, and then guess what? You start telling it no. And it's like, oh, I can't do this. Your flesh is used to the sin. So naturally, you're going to be fought really, really hard. This next part right here, you're going to want to hear this, okay? We see he's healed, and then he gets attacked by the Jews or the legalistic people, the already supposed to be believers and people of the faith, but they're condemning him because he's doing wrong. And then guess what? In verse 14, it says, afterward Jesus found him in the temple, and he said to him, behold, you are made whole. Stop sinning so a worse thing won't happen to you. I'd like to think that the guy was sitting there and he was like, what in the world? Man, I ain't been able to walk in years. My whole life. What could be worse? Well, Jesus, remember, he looks at the heart. He looks at the heart and he noticed that the guy was still sinning some. He had been physically healed, but the spiritual healing had not fully taken place yet. And that is very important here, okay? Guess what happens when you're not fully spiritually healed? A worse thing will come to you. A worse thing will happen. What is that worst thing? The worst thing is being in hell, separate from God, okay? We see this man at the pool of Bethesda. He was sitting around waiting on water to get stirred up. He didn't need stirred up water. He needed a living water. He needed a moving water, okay? He didn't need somebody to pick him up and lead him into the water. He needed somebody to tell him to get up and walk in the light. Remember I said that this Bethesda meant the house of mercy? He didn't need a house of mercy. He needed the host of mercy. And that's Jesus Christ. This legend that he was chasing his whole life, this way that he was trying to pursue getting healed his whole life wasn't going to work. And that's exactly what Jesus came to do. The host of mercy came in to give him the living water and tell him to get up and walk in the light. Come on, somebody. I'm going to tell you something about legends. Legends die too, whether they're people or stories. Those legends die too, and they go away and people forget about them. But Jesus defeated death. Jesus is alive. He is not dead. So think about this today. Do you want to be healed? Are you ready to give it up? Guys, this is eternal life hanging on the line here. We're going to go into a 6-foot hole, and this book right here, this Bible, tells us a story how to get out of this 6-foot hole. We don't need to stir up water, because eventually that stirred up water will quit stirring. We need a living water, a moving water. We need somebody to tell us to get up and walk, and Jesus has done that in this Bible. So get up and walk this week, and walk in the light, and be in relation with that living holy water, because the Monday's coming and the enemy's going to meet you there. Thank you.